Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Buckle up, because what I'm about to share has haunted every second of my life since it happened. And it all started with a locked door at a house party. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I just needed to find my wife. 5 minutes earlier, I'd stepped outside to take a quick call. The kind you don't ignore, especially when it's about your little niece choking on a peanut. I walked out calm. I came back. Wrong. Off balance. Unwelcome. The hallway was quieter than it should have been. Music still played somewhere in the background, but muffled, like it had been swallowed up by something colder. My shoes stuck to the hardwood as I moved. Too quiet for a party. I didn't see her in the kitchen. Not by the snacks. Not laughing on the couch. Not near the wine. Then I noticed it. Miles' office door. Closed. But not just closed, locked. And here's the kicker. 30 minutes before, during his humble brag tour of his smart home setup, Miles had waved at that exact same room and said, "Never locks. Don't mind the mess, open door policy." So why was it locked now? I stood there like an idiot, staring at the doorknob, hoping maybe it would explain itself. Then I heard something. No, I felt something. A vibration, a quick shuffle, and a sound I can't unhear. A zipper. My skin went cold. My tongue felt like it was stuck to the roof of my mouth. And then a voice. Her voice. Cora. Laughing. Giggling in that high-pitched way she does when she's nervous. Except she never giggled like that with me anymore. Not since the cruise. Not since that weird fight about boundaries. Another voice followed, male. Low. Confident. Almost bored. I couldn't make out the words. Just the cadence. The familiarity. And that smug, hushed tone that only two people in a shared secret ever use. I didn't breathe. I just backed up. Slow. Careful. Like I'd accidentally stepped on something sacred. I heard movement again. Fast this time. Whispers. Then silence. I turned and walked down the hall, trying to look normal, casual, like I was just heading toward the bathroom. No one saw me. Back in the living room, I sat on the edge of the couch, clutching my drink like it was holding me together. My hands were shaking so bad the ice clinked like wind chimes. And then Cora came back. Hair slightly mussed. Lipstick slightly faded. Smile too wide. She sat down beside me, rested a hand on my knee, and said, "You okay? You look pale." I stared at her for a second too long, trying to decide if I imagined everything. Then she leaned closer and whispered, "You really shouldn't just disappear like that. People might get the wrong idea." She smiled, and I cracked. This is only the beginning. Wait until you hear what happened when I told Miles I accidentally opened the door later that night. Couldn't sleep that night. Cora fell asleep fast, which wasn't unusual. She always claimed parties drained her. But this time, she didn't even say goodnight. She just turned her back to me in bed. Like the door she'd locked earlier was still standing between us. I laid there with my eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, hearing everything and nothing at the same time. My mind replayed every second outside that locked door. The sound of her voice, the shift in her smile, the way she looked at me like I was the one acting strange. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I made coffee, burnt the toast, asked if she slept okay. She nodded, barely looking up from her phone. And then, casually, like we were talking about the weather, I asked, "So, what were you doing in Miles' office last night?" Her fingers froze over the screen. She didn't answer at first, just blinked, then said, "What?" I repeated it, this time quieter, slower, like maybe if I softened the question, the answer would sting less. Cora tilted her head like she was trying to recall. "Oh, I think Geneva wanted to show me something. Some weird vintage lamp she keeps in there? I don't know. Why? A lamp. That's the best she could do?" I forced a nod. I heard voices. She didn't even flinch. "Yeah, we were talking about the decor. Miles has awful taste, right?" I smiled. A lie for a lie. Game on. Later that day, I texted Geneva. Just something stupid and casual. "Hey, thanks for hosting. Cora told me about that lamp. Pretty cool." The 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. 5 minutes passed. Nothing. Another 5. Still nothing. Finally, an hour later, she replied, "What lamp?" That was it. Just 2 words. No emoji. No LOL. No punctuation. I stared at the screen so long my coffee went cold. I wanted to ask more, but I didn't, because now I was sure they were hiding something. And I didn't know if it was worse that my wife lied, or that someone else was helping her do it. But here's where it got even stranger. That evening, Miles called me. Not texted, called. Out of nowhere. And when I picked up, he sounded nervous. Said he wanted to clear the air about something, and hoped I didn't misunderstand what might have looked like a locked door situation. I didn't say a word. I just listened as he stammered through an explanation that felt like it had been rehearsed, rewritten, then butchered. That's when I knew for sure. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a cover-up. And the next time I saw Miles, he wouldn't be the one doing the talking. 3 days later, I found myself parked across the street from Miles' place. I didn't mean to drive there. Honestly, I had errands to run, groceries to pick up, but somehow my car turned onto his street like it had a mind of its own. I kept telling myself I wasn't spying. I wasn't going to get out. I just wanted to prove to myself that everything was fine. That normal people don't circle their best friend's house like a low-budget private investigator. But then I saw them. Through the massive bay window, there they were, Cora and Miles, laughing. Again, that laugh. The one I hadn't heard in our house in months. It wasn't the sound that gutted me, though. It was the way she touched his arm. Like it was second nature. Like she'd done it 100 times before. Her hand stayed there too long for something innocent. And then she leaned in close to whisper something, and he didn't move away. I ducked. Pathetic, right? Hiding in my own car like a coward. But I felt like if either of them saw me, it would break something in me I wouldn't be able to glue back together. I didn't confront them. Not then. I waited until Cora got home later that night and casually asked her how her day was. She said she worked late. Back-to-back meetings, she mumbled while reheating leftover soup. Then she changed the subject and asked if I'd remembered to take the trash out. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "Miles called today. Asked if I wanted to grab lunch this week." She flinched. I noticed, just for a second. "Oh," she said, stirring her soup like it hadn't already boiled. "Did you say yes?" I said I'd think about it. That night, I didn't sleep again. I kept hearing her voice in my head. Not the real one, but the version of her I saw in that window. The woman who looked like my wife, but who wasn't mine anymore. My stomach felt like it was slowly folding in on itself. The next morning, I did something I swore I wouldn't do. I opened her laptop. She never used passwords on it. She always said, "What do I have to hide?" Well, apparently that was a question with a very different answer now. I didn't find emails. No obvious messages. But I did find her calendar. And buried between doctor appointments and client calls was an event titled simply, M Coffee at 11. Not work. Not errands. Just M. That was tomorrow. And I was done waiting. I don't know what I expected when I showed up to that coffee shop the next day. Closure? Clarity? Maybe just proof that I wasn't unraveling without cause. Either way, I arrived 20 minutes before her calendar said she would and took the table farthest from the windows. The kind that gave me full view of the entrance but kept me in the shadows. The server asked if I was waiting for someone. I said no. I wasn't there to talk. I was there to watch. At exactly 11:03, Cora walked in. No hesitation. No looking around nervously. Just confident, comfortable, and glowing. She wasn't dressed for work. No laptop bag, no business blazer. Just a cream sweater that dipped off one shoulder and jeans I hadn't seen her wear since our early days. Her hair was down, not tied back like she usually wore it for meetings. I knew that version of her. I fell in love with that version of her. The one who used to look like that for me. And then he walked in behind her. Miles, of course. They didn't even do that awkward, "Oh, hey," greeting. They arrived together. She'd lied about the meeting on her calendar. They sat close. Not beside each other, but not quite across either. Like their knees could touch without effort. She leaned in to say something and he laughed, that smug, casual laugh he always used when he thought he was winning. I stayed for 20 minutes. I watched her laugh in ways she hadn't in months. Watched her tap her fingers against his forearm like they shared an inside joke. Watched him glance down at her lips when she sipped her drink. When she reached for his hand, I stood up. She didn't see me walk out. Or maybe she did and chose not to react. Either way, I got in my car, drove 2 blocks, parked again, and cried like someone had died. I didn't even realize I was doing it until I looked at myself in the mirror. Face blotchy, hands shaking, jaw clenched so hard it ached. That night I didn't speak to her. Couldn't. She came home around 7 p.m. with some excuse about helping a friend with wedding planning. She smelled like cinnamon and coffee. I wanted to ask her what Miles ordered. I wanted to ask her if she remembered how she used to ask me if my hand was warm before holding it. But I said nothing. Instead, I started planning something of my own. A way to make her confess without even knowing she had. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't scream. I didn't ask who he was to her, or why she had to lie about coffee dates. Instead, I waited until Sunday, her favorite day, when she always made pancakes and wore fuzzy socks and pretended we were still happily married. I knew if I pushed too hard, she'd just lie again, so I tried something else. I let her come to me. We were sitting on the couch, a movie playing neither of us were watching, when I said, "You ever feel like people grow closer when they have nothing to hide?" She tilted her head, suspicious. "What's that supposed to mean?" I shrugged. "I don't know. Just feels like I'm more open with you than you are with me." That got her. She didn't say anything for a while, but she looked bothered, not defensive, just off balance. Then she hit me with, "Are you trying to say something, Wendell? Because if you have a problem, just say it." "No," I answered calmly. "I don't have a problem. I just feel like maybe we're not being honest with each other anymore." She rolled her eyes and pulled the blanket tighter around herself, but I saw it. That little twitch in her jaw, the way she swallowed hard. Guilt has a scent, and it was all over her. Later that evening, she came to me in the kitchen and said she wanted to talk. That she'd been feeling confused lately. That she didn't want to make things worse between us. That maybe we needed a little space to figure things out. There it was. The soft launch breakup. I nodded slowly, pretending to be surprised. Pretending I hadn't watched her through glass. Pretending I didn't know she was already testing what life would be like without me. "If that's what you need," I said gently, "I understand." She looked relieved, like I'd let her off the hook without demanding an explanation. Like she could walk through the wreckage and pretend she wasn't the one who lit the match. She told me she'd stay at her sister's for a few days, packed a bag that night, kissed me on the cheek like it meant something, and left the next morning just before sunrise. But she didn't go to her sister's. She went straight to him. And I know because I followed her. I didn't follow her in the way you'd see in a movie, no trench coat, no binoculars. I simply waited, watched her toss her bag into the trunk and pull out of the driveway with her sunglasses on and the same indifferent calm she used to have after dentist appointments. I stayed 3 cars back, took the long turns, let traffic help me blend. I already knew she wasn't going to her sister's. That had been a lie before it even left her lips. She drove straight to a neighborhood I recognized immediately, Miles' side of town. His block, his exact street. I parked a bit down and watched her get out, check her phone, and walk to his front door like she'd done it 100 times. She didn't knock. She had a key. That moment, seeing her unlock another man's door while still wearing the necklace I gave her on our anniversary, was the kind of pain that doesn't explode. It just leaks into you slowly, until everything warm inside you turns cold. I didn't get out. I didn't storm up the steps. I just sat there in silence, letting it hurt, letting it settle. The next morning, she texted me, said her sister's place had spotty Wi-Fi, so she might be quiet for a bit. I stared at the screen for a while, then replied, "No worries. Take your time." I wanted her to think I was still buying it. I wanted her to feel safe enough to stop covering her tracks. That evening, I emailed myself the footage. See, a few weeks ago, right after the party, I'd bought a small camera. Nothing big. Just a discreet little thing that could sit on a bookshelf and look like a Bluetooth speaker. I planted it in our living room, pointed at the couch, just to see what happened when I wasn't home. She hadn't brought him over yet. Not that I knew of, but I was done taking her word for anything. The next afternoon, after pretending to be at work, I came home early and went straight to the footage. Nothing for the first hour. Then motion. Not him. Her. Alone. Standing by the window, phone in hand, smiling down at the screen like it held her future. Then she started talking. On speaker. I paused it, turned up the volume, and hit play. The voice on the other end? It wasn't Miles. It was someone else entirely. I played the clip 3 times before I could even process what I was hearing. At first, I thought maybe Miles was using a fake voice, lowering it, trying to sound more secretive. But the more I listened, the more obvious it became. This wasn't Miles. The tone, the rhythm, the occasional accent that slipped in on certain words. None of it matched. Whoever this was, he wasn't local. And he wasn't new to her. "Don't worry," she whispered into the phone, pacing in front of the couch. "He doesn't suspect anything. He still thinks it's Miles." My blood stopped moving. He still thinks it's Miles. I paused the video and stared at her frozen frame on the screen. Soft smile, bare feet on the hardwood, completely comfortable in her lie. That one line cracked the entire illusion apart. She had used Miles as a distraction, a shield. I hated him for what I thought he'd done, but in reality, he'd been the decoy in someone else's betrayal. She kept talking. "I'll tell him soon," she said, dragging her fingers through her hair. "I just need the timing to be right. If I do it now, he might freak. He's been sensitive lately. Sensitive. Like I was a burden. Like my emotions were just some fragile inconvenience she had to manage while she sneaked around behind my back." The guy on the other end spoke, but his words were muffled. Still, I caught fragments. Something about getting the papers ready and finalizing the account switch. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just emotional. This was financial. She was planning to end the marriage and move something, money, maybe assets. I should have been furious. Should have called her right then. But all I felt was this quiet, heavy ache in my chest. Like I'd been grieving someone who was still alive. Someone standing in my kitchen every morning like she wasn't orchestrating my exit behind a curtain of soft kisses and fake smiles. I checked the timestamp. The call had ended an hour before she came home that day. I rewound and listened again. This time I caught the name. It wasn't Miles. It was Julian. I didn't know a Julian, but clearly she did. Julian. The name echoed in my head like it had been there all along, waiting to be discovered. I searched everywhere, her email, her contacts, old photos. Nothing. No mention of a Julian. Whoever he was, he existed in a separate world she had carefully built without me. But I wasn't about to let her finish this story without including me in the final chapter. I made no dramatic moves, no confrontations, no traps. I simply started protecting myself. Quietly, I froze the joint account, transferred my direct deposit to a private bank. Backed up everything, the footage, her texts, even that old calendar entry. I scheduled a consultation with a lawyer and showed them everything. The lies, the deception, the planning. And then I waited. Cora came home one afternoon to a different version of me. Calm, collected, packing. Not in anger, in peace. She asked what was going on, and I told her the truth. "I know about Julian." She froze. I didn't need to yell. Didn't need her confession. The truth was already sitting neatly on a flash drive, labeled and timestamped. Her expression said more than any apology could. In the weeks that followed, everything moved faster than I expected. Papers were signed. Accounts were split. She tried reaching out once. A long message about confusion, timing, regret. I never answered. Some endings don't need closure. Just silence. The funny thing is, I thought I'd be broken. Alone. But the opposite happened. I started sleeping again. I started laughing again. Real laughs, not polite chuckles. I took a weekend trip by myself for the first time in years. Watched the sunrise from a quiet shoreline, and realized I didn't miss her. I missed the version of me that existed before I started making myself small to be loved. Now, months later, I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm grateful. Her betrayal forced me to grow in ways I never would have on my own. I learned to pay attention, to speak up, to walk away when a door locks behind me. She chose her path, and I finally found mine. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever had to rebuild after betrayal, or walked away stronger than you imagined, tell us in the comments, and share a historical moment where someone overcame the odds. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget, you're watching Reddit Confessions.